Is Colombia safe? That's a great question. From good to bad, here's everything I learned traveling around Colombia. For many years, Colombia has been known as a violent country that's really dangerous to visit and ruled by Pablo Escobar and his gangs. Well, he was around in the 80s, and since then, Colombia has been trying to repair that reputation. While many of these gangs still exist today, they mostly exist in areas that aren't popular travel destinations. Over the past few years, safety has increased a lot in Colombia. The main tourist spots in Colombia, like Cartagena, are viewed to be really safe places to visit, and most people that travel around the Caribbean coast as well won't need to worry too much. You'll need to be aware just like anywhere else, but in this northern coast, it's not any worse than Paris or New York. In Cartagena, we felt safe walking around at night, and I was vlogging with my phone out the entire time, even when it was recommended that you don't take your phone out at all. However, Cartagena is not the same as some other big cities like Medellin or Bogota. These cities have some pockets that get a lot more dangerous, but I still wouldn't recommend skipping them because they're both amazing cities to visit. There's so many other great tourist destinations here like Santa Marta, Barranquilla, and a hidden gem in the mountains, Minca. But I would just recommend doing your research on areas you would need to avoid in each city before you go. This way you'll be able to have a pretty event-free trip. There's some areas in Colombia that if you plan on traveling to, you'll need to be a bit more cautious, and these are the borders with Venezuela, Panama, and Brazil. Those are pretty much more dangerous than the rest of the country, especially the border with Venezuela, since a lot of people are trying to escape from there into Colombia. Tourists are not targeted, but there is a popular scam here where a dealer could come up to you that works with the police and they could pretend to sell you something and then let the cops know that you bought some. Buses are generally viewed as unsafe here. We didn't actually know that, but buses have a decent risk of crime, kidnappings, muggings, and shootings. When we got on a bus in the morning at Cartagena's main bus terminal, which is 20 minutes south of the tourist center, we said where we wanted to go and we just followed a random guy who took us onto a bus and just handed him some money. Then we sit on a bus and a lady just starts taking a video of all of us, and the guy beside me explained to me that it's a security video and he said it's just in case of kidnappings or muggings. It's rare, but it happens. And after that, I just turned to Katya and she had the same look on her face that I did. Everything ended up going well though. At least almost it did. Our bus driver actually got arrested mid-drive while we were picking up people in Barranquilla. The cops pulled him aside and he quickly got on the bus and tried to escape, but then eventually they caught up to him and we were just sitting on the bus for about an hour waiting for a new bus driver. And it doesn't really seem like they have a system for buses where they stop. It just seems like they stop anywhere you want to get on, or you tell them where you want to get off and they'll just stop there. They'll give a rough rate to you and you can usually negotiate with them for a cheaper fare. There's not really a schedule. You can look online for rough times, but once you get to the station, you just get on and it looks like the bus leaves whenever it fills with a decent amount of people. Something you need to keep in mind, and this is something you need to be aware of pretty much anywhere around the world, is pickpocketing. It can happen anywhere, so just keep your belongings safe. Also, there's a lot of areas in each city that you're gonna need to steer clear of. Not just that, but if you're walking around in a really nice area and wondering why nobody's there, you should probably get out of there as fast as you can. There are some spots that are known to locals that you just shouldn't go. Something random that Katya and I noticed when we got there is a lot of people have really angry looking faces all the time, but Colombians are actually really friendly people, and as soon as you talk to them, they're always so nice to you and want to help you as much as they can. Another great way to get around, especially if you don't want to use bus, is by using taxis or Ubers. They're both really cheap here and you can basically get them to drive you around anywhere you want. Just make sure you're negotiating a fare with the driver before you get in, because once they drop you off, they'll be able to pick any price they want because there are no meters. And I wouldn't say they're unsafe either because we used a lot of taxis and they were all great. But if you're looking for someone in the Santa Marta or Cartagena area, you can message me and I'll give you a contact for Juan Carlos, which was our taxi driver. He's a great guy and he can pretty much drive you anywhere, even if you want to go from Santa Marta to Cartagena, or the other way around, and pretty much anywhere else in between. I don't know if I would recommend driving. If you've never driven anywhere outside of of North America or parts of Western Europe and haven't gotten used to the havoc of pretty much every other country in the world, then I would not get a car. Colombia basically has no driving laws at all. There's not even seatbelts in the backseat of any car, and even in the front seat, nobody uses their seatbelt unless they see police. In terms of main highways though, they're usually fine to drive on and nothing eventful happens on these popular routes. And in cities, you're just going to be driving within a cluster of people with no lanes, and this is something that happens to you mainly in the Caribbean coast, places like Cartagena and Playa Blanca. There's going to be people that come up to you at pretty much any opportunity. And especially if you don't look Colombian. People are gonna come up to you and try to sell you something all the time. And trust me, this is different from any other city that you've been to before. And they're gonna follow you for a long time. Even if you pretend they don't exist, they could follow you for like 5 minutes. And you could be laying on a beach and people are just gonna be standing there blocking your sun or start massaging your feet and sell you that massage. At Playa Blanca, you're never gonna have more than 2 minutes to yourself. And that's not an exaggeration at all. Basically, people are gonna try to get as much money from you as they can, and to be fair, you can see why. Lots of people don't live in the best conditions, so they try to make money however they can. Also, if you don't know Spanish, it's going to be really hard to get around in Colombia because barely anyone speaks English. Taxi drivers, restaurants, and basically anyone on the street that you're going to talk to won't know English whatsoever. You might find the odd person here and there, but pretty much everyone in the country doesn't speak English. This can also come to your advantage though with the sellers on the street, because you just won't understand each other and they'll stop bothering you. And for the ones that do speak English, you can just say no habla español y no habla inglés, which means I don't speak Spanish and I don't speak English. Then they'll just probably be stunned and will stop following you. Tap water in pretty much all of South America is not safe for drinking, and other than Cartagena, which is still pretty iffy, there isn't any city as of right now in Colombia that has clean drinking tap water. So if you're traveling around, make sure you're buying water and always have some extra water with you. I made some mistakes and brushed my teeth with sink water or just opened my mouth in the shower. I know you do that too. And I never felt sick, but I would be safe because you never know. Just some general safety tips too. I would recommend getting the yellow fever vaccine. We never got it, but we ended up being eaten a lot by mosquitoes, and I just think we got lucky. But there are a lot of mosquitoes and yellow fever is out there, especially in places like Tayrona and Minca. There's going to be some dangerous animals too, like poisonous dart frogs, which can kill you if you touch them. And there's a lot of animals that you would just expect in the Amazon, like crocodiles and jaguars. One last tip about dealing with people is that sales can often seem pretty sketchy. When we got there and we wanted a phone plan, we went into Claro, and then the guy just told us to follow him to add the gigabytes onto the card because they couldn't do it there. So we walked out and followed him into this little alley with a tiny little shop, and which at the end of it ended up being the right spot. And it did seem a little scary, and the only reason we didn't leave that transaction was because there was enough people around us where we felt like someone would help us if something were to happen. Obviously, I would use your intuition, and if something doesn't feel right, then I would avoid going there. And if you want to avoid doing deals with people on the street, you can usually find something online as well. I just wanted to bring that up because if you are coming from a more Western country, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't feel right that would be really sketchy if that happened where you're from. Things are just done differently here and in many other countries around the world, and that's just the beauty of travel. You see a lot of things that you're not used to, you get to know different cultures and see things that people do in other countries. That's why I love to travel and see all these places and go to these countries that people see on the news that have a bad reputation or are known to be really dangerous, and you get to figure out that a lot of the times that's not actually true. A lot of this stuff that I mentioned in the video happens in the US and UK too, and it mostly just comes down to staying out of bad neighborhoods, which is true about pretty much every country in the world. The rest of it is just a different way of life than it is in the Western world. So if you've been thinking about going to Colombia but we're scared about the safety, I hope this video lets you know that it's not as bad as the reputation that it's been given. I have lots of vlogs about places in Colombia, so definitely check those out when you plan on traveling here. Please like this video and subscribe to see lots of vlogs around Colombia and also the rest of the world. And I'll see you again in the next one.